I just want to bring you some breaking news now, and we're hearing that Liverpool Football Club have just announced that they are retiring Diogo Jota's number 20 shirt. The Portuguese striker died.
Friends and family of the Liverpool striker Diogo Jota and his brother André Silva attended their funerals today in their hometown in Portugal. The brothers died in a car crash in Spain on Thursday. The 28-year-old footballer had married his long-term partner just 11 days before the crash. The news he had sent and the content made all fans, teammates, and even rivals completely speechless. If you have ever been moved by a story that shows how fragile life really is, comment 1 in the chat. Because what you will hear now goes far beyond football. It touches the heart of love, loss and tragic death, and the last message. Diogo José Teixeira da Silva, the world, simply known as Diogo Jota, was born on the 4th of December 1906 in the modest neighborhood of Mazarelos, in the pulsating coastal town of Porto, Portugal. Although his birthplace was rich in culture and colors, Diogo found himself in Gondomar, a quiet suburb in which his family settled when he was still a child. For the first time, the rhythm of his life was really football. The narrow cobblestone-paved streets of Gondomar, the quiet parks and the dusty schoolyards became his first training grounds. There, in the midst of the lively cries of the neighborhood games and the rustling of the auxiliary gates, Diogo's dreams took shape. With the ball on his foot and the ambition in his heart, he strived for a future that went far beyond the horizon of the small town. He was never alone on this journey. His younger brother, André Silva, was only 3 years younger than he was, his constant shadow and companion. Whether they kicked a ball against the garage wall, embraced their idols in the Champions League, or whispered dreams under the starry sky, the two were inseparable. They shared the same dream of wearing the green and red of Portugal and making their family proud. This dream came true, and even more. Diogo's remarkable rise from the youthful Gondomars to the international spotlight was no coincidence. He was the result of relentless discipline, breathtaking talent, and unwavering support from his environment. From Paços de Ferreira to the FC Porto Academy, from Atletico Madrid to the Wolverhampton Wanderers, and finally to the holy halls of Anfield, Diogo left his mark with every goal, every assist, and every electrifying performance. In the summer of 2025, he became one of the biggest stars of the FC Liverpool and a key player of the Portuguese national team. He had a brilliant professional career, the love and admiration of fans around the world, and a deep, constant love in his private life. But then the unthinkable happened. On a quiet July day in 2025, the sky over Gondomar seemed unusually quiet. On the Flasterstein, which once reigned by the laughter of 2 young men, there was now a heavy silence. The city, the nation, and the world of football were haunted by a devastating loss. The first 28-year-old Diogo Jota died tragically in a car accident on the A50 in Zamora, Spain. He was not alone. His beloved brother André was by his side. The same brother who had followed dreams with him in the alleys of their childhood. They were on the road together, as often, but this journey was supposed to be their last. The news shook the football world. The fans mourned in cities from Porto to Liverpool. Teammates, coaches, and rivals overcame each other with praises. But no heartbeat was greater than that of Ruth Cardoso, Diogo's longtime partner and now his widow. Only 11 days before, on June 22nd, in 2025, Diogo and Ruth were standing together in a small, sun-flooded church in Porto. It was a moment they had been waiting for more than a decade. Their love story had begun in the corridors of the schools of Gondomar and had matured in the frenzy of fame and wealth. Now she was sealed in marriage in front of the eyes of her 3 little children, who are the greatest joy of the couple. In a video that he shared with his millions of followers, Diogo smiled from one ear to the other arm, in arm with his wife, and simply titled it with Sim para sempre, yes forever. It was a veil full of hope and certainty, cast off by a man whose life had never looked better. But fate can be cruel. Only a few hours before the crash, Diogo Jota sent a message that was supposed to be his last. It wasn't long, but it contained a lifelong love. I will always love you. No one could have guessed that these words would become a final farewell. Now the world is not only mourning a footballer, but also a father, a husband, a brother, and a son. Gondomar, where it all began, mourns with millions of people. Fans lay flowers in Anfield. The Portuguese flag is waving at half-mast, and friends from childhood sit there in amazement and remember the boys who once juggled with a ball on the street. A midnight tragedy. In the quiet hours of July 3rd, 2025, at around 12:30 a.m., a sharp green Lamborghini Huracan raced over the A52 motorway near Zamora, Spain. It was a journey that was supposed to mark the beginning of a new chapter, the return to England to start the Premier League preparation, a moment full of hope and ambition. In the car sat 2 brothers who are connected by blood, football, and a common dream. Diogo Jota, the popular 28-year-old Liverpool star and Portuguese international, and his younger brother Andre Silva, 25 years old, professional footballer at FC Penafiel in the second Portuguese league. Fresh from a family party, Diogo's wedding was only 11 days ago. The brothers drove back after a short but happy escape and set out for the next phase of their lives. But fate intervened in a cruel way. As the Spanish Guardia Civil reported, the tragedy occurred when the Lamborghini wanted to overtake a truck at high speed. In a frightening moment, the right rear tire burst, causing the high-performance vehicle to go out of control. The car came off the road, crashed into the middle strip and caught fire, with the two brothers trapped inside. When the ambulance arrived at the scene, the Lamborghini was already a blazing fireball. Nothing could be done. Both Diogo and Andre were declared dead at the scene. The first images that appeared in the Spanish media were almost too gruesome to comprehend. The luxury sports car was just a crumpled, blackened wreck, a twisted pile of burnt metal lying on the roadside, and was hardly distinguishable from the former dream machine. The news of the crash was not immediately known. Instead, Ruth Cardoso, Diogo's new wife and partner, had been contacted by the Spanish authorities in the early morning hours for more than 10 years. The call brought their world to a standstill. The car was burned to the point of ignorance. The license plate was unreadable, and an identification could not be made at the scene. Ruth was asked to make an unimaginable journey to a nearby corpse show house, where the bodies of the two men lay. Still shocked by her wedding and the flutter weeks, she was now confronted with a nightmarish turn. She had to find out the man's death, to which she had just given her eternal promise. In the cold, sterile visitation room, Ruth handed out the few trifles that had been salvaged from the wreckage. A wedding ring, a sunken file bag, and a shattered mobile phone. The last device with which Diogo had told her, "I will always love you." The bodies, terribly burned and broken, left no doubt. What a summer of joy for the families. What had begun with Cardoso and Jota had become something inexplicably painful. The silence that followed was not only grief, it was shock, grief and disbelief at the same time. For several days, the Jota family showed the private sphere of the public and asked for time to process their grief before making the tragedy public. On July 4th, 2025, the Liverpool Football Club confirmed the death of its striker star in an emotional public statement. The club described Jota's death as an unimaginable loss for the football world and a devastating tragedy for everyone who loved him. From Anfield to Portugal to the football pitches around the globe, the news triggered a wave of grief. His teammates, colleagues, coaches and fans were united in grief. Virgil van Dijk, Jota's defense colleague at Liverpool, wrote no words, only pain. "We lost a brother." Mohamed Salah shared a picture of the last training session together with the caption, "Forever in our hearts, Diogo." But the most emotional appreciation came from Cristiano Ronaldo, Diogo's teammate in the Portuguese national team. "It's unbelievable. We were just together in training. You had just married your love. Life is cruel in a way that we can't understand. My thoughts and prayers go to your wife, your children, and your family." Good, who accompanied Diogo through all the ups and downs of his path. From his beginnings in Gondomar to the size of Anfield Road, had to take care of the 3 little children who were now fatherless. The silence of the family in the immediate aftermath was not absent. It was grief that was too deep to be put into words. Too deep for press releases. The tragedy had an impact far beyond the world of football. For the fans, Diogo Jota was a rising star, a relentless striker and a player who showed passion and elegance in every game. But for those who knew him best, his wife, his children, his brother, his parents, he was a modest boy from Gondomar who never forgot where he came from, no matter how high he climbed. His life was characterized by brilliance and burned out in seconds. But his memory of the beautiful game he loved will last forever. The last one. Goodbye. On July 5th, 2025, the quiet city of Gondomar stood. The place where 2 brothers once chased a ball through the paved streets and dreamed of greatness. Stood still under a sky filled with grief. The historic Igreja Matriz, the main church of the city, became the center of national mourning when Diogo José Teixeira da Silva, who is known in the world as Diogo Jota, and his younger brother Andre Silva were buried there. The two were only a few days earlier when a terrible car accident took place in Spain, which shocked Portugal and the entire football world. Now their hometown had gathered to bring them home for the last time. Inside the church, there was a dense atmosphere of mourning. Hundreds of mourners, including football stars like Bruno Fernandes and João Felix, filled all the church benches while hundreds of others stood outside in silence. Fans of all age groups, little boys in Portugal jerseys, older men with Liverpool scarves, came not only to say goodbye, but also to show gratitude for the magic, for the goals, for the joy. At the center of the ceremony were 2 closed coffins, covered with the Portuguese flag and decorated with white lilies and football jerseys. Behind them, Ruth Cardoso, Diogo's widow, only went 11 days after her wedding. Her face was marked by a pain that could not be put into words. As the mourning reached its emotional climax, she stepped forward, put her head gently on Diogo's coffin, and stayed there as if she wanted to hold the last warmth of the man she loved. As the last hymn of Ave Maria sounded, the voices of the choir mixed with the quiet rustling of the crowd. The sounds filled the church with a reverent silence, which eventually turned into a cascade of tears as the two brothers were carried out for the last time into the summer light of Gondomar. The words of a widow Ruth broke her silence. On July 7th, 2 days after the funeral, the world heard for the first time since the tragedy of Ruth Cardoso. In a heartbreaking Instagram post, she shared Diogo's last message to her. The simple but eternal words, "I will always love you." Her signature read, "You promised to love me forever, and I know that you will keep this promise from heaven. Thank you for everything. Diogo, my children and I will carry you in our hearts forever." The post has touched millions of people around the world. Within a few hours, it was equally shared by football clubs, celebrities and fans. There were numerous accolades, from teammates, rivals and strangers who were touched by Diogo's life. He was a hero on the pitch, but more than that, he was a devoted father, a loyal husband and a modest soul. His legacy consisted not only of goals and trophies, but also of love, loyalty and humility. In Liverpool, thousands of fans gathered in front of the Anfield Stadium, where auxiliary memorials were built. In front of the stadium gates, there were bouquets of flowers with the number 20 and candles flickering in the silence. Children painted pictures of Diogo as he scored goals. Older fans wept over the loss of a player they saw as a family member, and the honors went beyond the world of football. During a concert by Oasis in Cardiff, a moving moment silenced the crowd. On the huge stadium screen, Diogo's Liverpool jersey with the number 20 appeared and shone in the spotlight as the first chords of Live Forever through the arena. The 75. Zio spectators stood and applauded, a gesture that concerns neither language nor sport. For a few moments, a worldwide audience mourned not only about one footballer, but about one person. Life after loss, a future without Diogo. Today, Ruth Cardoso stands a widow at the age of only 28 in front of a future that no one should ever be confronted with. Alone, but not without support. She is now the support for her 3 little children, of whom the youngest will probably never remember the face of his father, but will grow up with stories about his goodness, strength and love. The football community from Liverpool to Porto, from teammates to fans, has gathered around her. Donations were launched. There are still numerous support announcements. And as Liverpool head coach Arne Slot recently said in a press conference in tears, they will never go alone. Not Ruth, not their children. Diogo may not be there anymore, but his family has won millions of hearts. The last words of Diogo Jota S., which were sent in a refugee message on a summer night, "I will always love you," have indeed gained a deeper meaning. They are no longer just the promise of a husband to his wife, but a message of eternal love from a man who has brought joy to so many people, both in life and now in memory. The hesitating star. Diogo José Teixeira da Silva, known in the football world as Diogo Jota, was never the prototype of a football star. He lacked the outstanding physical presence of a classic 9, and he did not come up with a dazzling flair or explosive speed. But what Diogo possessed, which is much more valuable and rarer, was an innate intelligence for the game, an unwavering work ethic and a heart that beat with calm conviction. While others could rely on their physical abilities, Diogo could always read the game one step ahead. He was able to anticipate a defense with movement, to make room in the narrowest penalty areas. He was a footballer who was not shaped by a hype, but by fighting spirit, refinement and endurance. At the age of only 16, Diogo joined the youth academy of FC Pacos de Ferreira, a modest club in the Portuguese Primeira Liga. Here, on the narrow training grounds and in the outdated changing rooms, he began to develop into the player he was to become. He quickly unbuckled as a hit-and-run striker who was characterized by a precise finish and a sophisticated tactical understanding that often made coaches and teammates forget how young he was. Then came 2016, the year when everything changed. Diogo was signed by Atletico Madrid, a change that not only promised him fame, but also led him to one of the most demanding test fields in football. But the way there was anything but smooth. Rentals at FC Porto and later at the Wolverhampton Wanderers put his resistance to the test. Each station brought pressure, expectations, and the risk of being forgotten. But Diogo enjoyed the need. In England, at the Wolves, he was in great shape and became one of the most persistent strikers in the Premier League. In 131 games, he scored 44 goals, a remarkable achievement when you consider the tactical requirements of the team. With each game, he reduced his doubts, and when he left the Wolves, he earned the respect of a league that rarely gives him up easily. In 2020, he made his decisive switch to Liverpool. Diogo found not only a new home under Jurgen Klopp, but also a club that finally reflected his values: intensity, modesty, family, and unity. In Anfield, he was no longer just a rising talent, but became a supporting pillar of the team. He didn't ask for the spotlight. He never screamed the loudest, but he delivered when it mattered most. From his outstanding header against Arsenal to the last-minute win in Old Trafford, Diogo was the man Klopp trusted in the decisive moments. Teammates and fans lovingly called him the silent murderer, a man who said little, but whose actions on the pitch were disgustingly loud. His timing, his positioning, and his scoring were not the result of a joke, but of relentless study and instinct. The heart behind the goals. Away from the pitch, Diogo's world was not of fame, but shaped by his family. The great love story of his life began in the quiet city of Gondomar, where he met a mutual friend, Ruud Cardoso. As a teenager, he was shy with his typical curly hair and the unmistakable gentle smile. She was self-confident and laughed quickly. He challenged her to a dance, a slow, helpless sleep dance, but he founded a partnership that should last stadium lighting and championship trophies. From the beginning, Ruud was his anchor. She stood by his side in all heights and depths, when he was doubted, when he was alone in foreign countries, when injuries threatened and when the pressure grew. When Diogo left his homeland to go to Spain and then to England, it was Ruud who reminded him where he came from and, more importantly, who he was. She kept his world together so that he could concentrate on the realization of his dream. And when he signed in Liverpool, it was not just a victory for him. It was a joint triumph. Behind the cameras and the screaming fans, Ruud led the household, raised the children, and protected the quiet refuge where Diogo returned after the battle. For Diogo, she was not only his wife, she was his compass, the constant in a career, the player, so often pulled away from the people she loved. A love that is marked in time. In the fall of 2021, the life of Diogo Jota and Ruud Cardoso changed forever. They welcomed their first child in the world, a little boy named Denise. In the following years, 2 more children followed him. A girl and another boy who completed a young family that was shrouded in love, warmth, and laughter. For Diogo, who already had professional success, fatherhood was the highest goal he had ever achieved. Every time he scored a goal, whether in Anfield or in international stadiums, he formed a heart with his hands and directed it to Ruth and her children, whether they were sitting in the stands or watching from home. It became a symbol of his quiet ritual that football was his craft, but his family was his reason. In an interview with Sky Sports, he once said very simply, "Football is my passion, but my family is my life." Their wedding on June 22nd. In 2025, the crowning of a love story that began in youth began. On that radiant summer day in Porto, Ruud took a step in a white dress to the wedding altar without letting Diogo out of her sight. The church rejoiced again. The children smiled. There was a feeling of fulfillment, as if the circle of their common life had finally been closed forever with smiles and promises. But fate, cruel and relentless, had other plans. Only a few days later, Ruud returned to her parents' house in Porto, not from a wedding trip, but from a funeral. The house, once echoed by Denise Kitchen, Andres Whitson, and Diogo's soft singing, was now silent. The children's footballs were untouched in the hallway. Diogo's shirts, no, 20, red and proud, were still neatly in the closet. His boots, which had been dirty with mud from the last game in the garden, were next to the door. His wedding ring, which he had saved from the rubble, now hung on a chain around Ruth's neck and gently pressed against her heart. And then came the most difficult questions. The 4-year-old Denise looked up to her one morning and asked, "Where is Mom and Dad?" Ruth did not know how to answer without hurting her innocence. She closed him in her arms and whispered, "Daddy is my treasure in heaven, but he always wakes up over you." At night, long after the children had fallen asleep, Ruth sat by the window. She opened her phone. She read his last text message again and again. "I will always love you." She often wondered if he knew anything, if he had felt that life was fragile and transient. The world mourns and remembers. The world out there did not remain silent on the 10th. In July 2025, FC Liverpool held a public commemoration in Anfield. Tens of thousands of fans gathered under tears, flowers, scarves, and handwritten letters piled up in front of the gates. A huge mural was unveiled, Diogo Jota, in the middle of the celebration with wide arms and a radiant face. Above him the words, "Diogo Jota, forever a hero." His teammates from Trent Alexander-Arnold to Alison Becker founded the Jota Brothers Foundation, a charity organization for underprivileged children in Gondomar, the hometown of the brothers. They not only wanted to honor a footballer, but also a man whose heart beat for the community. In Portugal, the national team took the extraordinary step to take his jersey number, to take 20 out of the jersey and ensure that no player would ever wear it again. It was not only about the legacy, but also about respect. In their first game after his death, Portugal played in a friendly match against Spain. Before the whistle, a moment of silence was held in the stadium, Diogo's face smiling and forever appeared on the Jumbotron. When the national anthem was played, players cried, coaches, fans, everyone. The courage of a widow and a dream for the future. Somehow Ruth found the strength to carry on. Not only for herself, but also for Denise and her siblings. She began to write a book, not a biography about a footballer, but an homage to a man. Not only the goals, said the BBC, not only the trophies. I want our children to know who their father really was. The man who danced with me in the kitchen, who taught them how to kick a ball, who made us laugh every day. She spoke with unwavering clarity. I don't want the world to remember Diogo only as a player. I wanted to remember the man who lived with kindness and gave his heart to everything he loved. And she had a dream. She wanted to open a football school in Gondomar, named after Diogo and Andre. An academy that does not produce stars, but gives children a place to dream. To pass on the spirit of two brothers who once played barefoot on stony roads, dreamed of great things and achieved them together. Ruth Cardozo's fight with the absence of Diogo Jota. In the days after his burial, Ruth Cardozo had the feeling that the world had become quiet. In the apartment in Porto, which had previously been filled with Diogo's and Andre's laughter, there was now an amazing silence. In every room of the house there are memories of Diogo. The sofa on which he watched films with his children, the dining table around which the family gathered every evening, and the freshly framed wedding photo on the wall that documented the joyful event a few weeks earlier. Ruth often stood in front of this photo and smiled at Diogo as if she could bring him back from eternity. Ruth, however, refused to give in to her grief. She realized that she had to be strong for her three children, Denise, Maria and João. Denise, a 4-year-old child with the same eyes as his father, felt the absence of Diogo. Denise stopped Ruth when he read a story. Come back, Dad. Mom. Dad promised to show me how to kick. His innocent remark hurt Ruth like a dagger in the heart. She held Denise in her arms and murmured, Dad is always in your heart, and I will teach you how to kick as he taught me. Ruth was looking for a solution to keep Diogo's memory alive. She watched old films from Diogo's games in Liverpool to ordinary family moments like him playing in the park with his children or singing badly in the kitchen to make Ruth laugh. She decided that Diogo, even if he would not be there anymore, would still be an inspiration for her and the world. Ruth put on a notebook and documented Diogo's stories so that her children could remember him. How he always put his family in the first place and how he survived in difficult times. The death of Diogo Jota was not only a loss for his family, but also a shock for the international football community. In Liverpool, the fans turned Anfield into an ocean of flowers and candles. Diogo's jersey with the number 20 was draped everywhere on the stands together with scribbled inscriptions. Thank you for everything, Jota, forever a Liverpool hero. At Liverpool's first game after Diogo's death, the game against Tottenham on the 12th, in July 2025, the entire team ran onto the pitch with black armbands. In the 20th minute, the whole stadium stood up and shouted Diogo's name as a repetition of his spectacular goals on the canvas. Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool lost a close relationship to his teammates and traveled from Germany to England to take part in the funeral. In an emotional address, he explained that Diogo was not only a great footballer, but also a wonderful person. He always fought with a smile and made others happy. We lost a Liverpool son, but his spirit will always be present in Anfield. Diogo's colleagues, especially Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk, became Ruth fans. Salah, who once called Diogo my brother on the pitch, often called Ruth and her children. He sent Dini a set of football shoes with an autograph of the entire Liverpool team and the inscription, "You will be a star like your father." Van Dijk planned a charity game in Anfield. All the money flowed into the construction of a football pitch for children in Gondola, which was named after Diogo Jota. The Portuguese football community also reacted violently. Diogo's former club, FC Porto, organized a funeral in the Estádio do Dragão. Thousands of fans, from children to seniors, laid flowers in front of the stadium in front of a temporary Diogo statue. The Portuguese national team, led by coach Roberto Martinez, will be silent in front of every home game in 2025. Cristiano Ronaldo, who played for Diogo's team, shared a photo of the two on Instagram and wrote, "You were a warrior, a brother." Diogo, please be quiet. Despite her personal pain, Ruth Cardozo decided to use her loss to inspire others. Founding of the Diogo Jota Foundation. This year, she announced the founding of the Diogo Jota Foundation, a non-profit organization that helps underprivileged children in Gondola and the surrounding areas. The organization will provide scholarships, sports equipment, and football training opportunities for young people who, like Diogo, Want to play football? Diogo has always said that football has changed his life, according to Root at a press conference. I want to make sure that the next generation has the same opportunities. The non-profit foundation immediately received support from large organizations. The FC Liverpool secured its annual sponsoring, while Nike sponsored a unique football shoe called Jota 20, which represented the entire payment of the foundation. The shoe, with its green design and the lettering, "Life Forever" on the sole, became a symbol of Diogo's unwavering commitment to endurance and dedication. Root is currently working on a book about Diogo. She calls it Love You Forever, which was inspired by her last text message. The book is not only about Diogo's football career, but also about everyday life, like Zint B, that he taught Dinas how to shoot a penalty, that he secretly ate cookies in the kitchen while Root was away, and that he took time to call his mother no matter how hectic his schedule was. Root believes that the Book of the Globe will help people to understand that Diogo was more than just a star. He was also a normal man who cared about everything, every night before going to bed. Root read Diogo's last text message one more time. "I will love you forever." His old mobile phone is now lying on her bedside table to give her the feeling that he is still there. Although the sadness will never completely disappear, Root comforts herself that she continues Diogo's legacy. She trained a young team in Gondomar and taught her Diogo's kick. Every time Root saw a youngster shoot a goal and make a heart sign, she had the impression that Diogo smiled from above. After Diogo's and Andre's death, the community of Gondomar has changed a lot. The previously unknown small village has become a popular destination for football fans from all over the world. A bronze monument was built for Diogo and Andre. The inscription on the base of the monument reads simply, "Heroes of Gondomar, forever in our hearts." Diogo Jota is dead, but his energy, his endurance, his love and his enthusiasm continue to live. Root, her children and millions of fans see more than just one player in him. What would be your last message to the person you love the most? Leave them in the comments. Because life is short and words are more important than we think. If this story touched you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to hear more untold stories that go far beyond the headlines. Diogo Jota may have left the pitch, but he left a message that will last forever.